Talking CRM with Jeff and David, getting the best value for the whole organization from your integrated CRM and accounting systems. David Beard, CRM Principal, and Jeff Richards, Head of Training Program Development for Sage CRM, spend time chatting with customers, resellers, and others about Sage CRM in action around the globe. Hello, welcome along, everyone. This is another edition of the Talking CRM Podcast Series with David and Jeff. Welcome, everyone. And today we're going to the continent of Africa. In fact, we're going specifically to Johannesburg, the city of gold, as I believe it's called, and welcoming Anthony Lipshitz from Astech along. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Welcome to our little soiree. Well, it's not quite a soiree. We like to think it is, though. Anthony, tell us a bit about you and Astech as a way of introducing yourself to the listeners.
Okay, great. So Astech, we started out as Sage partners, well, in those days, ACPAC partners in about 2001. So we worked exclusively with Sage 300 for a number of years. We were introduced to Sage CRM. We did our first project in about 2006. My background is actually in engineering and specifically in software development. Oh. So I recognized pretty quickly the value of CRM as a development tool as much as a CRM tool. And I think that led us down some interesting avenues in terms of CRM implementations and development and customization. So we've been working with Sage CRM since 2006. And it's been a great journey, been a very exciting journey for us.
So you must have some interesting stories. It's a good way you described it, almost as coming to it as a development environment first, putting a few words in your mouth there, because I think a lot of companies don't see that immediately. You sound like you saw that first.
Yeah, we did see that first. We were introduced to CRM, and when it was shown to us, it became quite clear to us that every company, when they're building a business system, they need to know their customers, they need to know the address information, they need communications, they need documents. There's a certain core information you rebuild a number of times every time you build an operational system from scratch. So why build it from scratch when you've got a base to start with and you've got a consistent base? And it creates a lot of leverage by doing that, because there's a lot of reuse. A lot of the terms you hear in software development become very relevant in the CRM space for us.
Those first customers in 2006, were they raw sort of vanilla CRM, or did you go down a particular path almost immediately?
First one we did, actually, we went down a very specific path. They had some very, very specific requirements. In fact, we spent about 6 months doing a detailed data model. Never mind for a functional requirement spec, we did a data model for them for about 6 months before we did. The actual implementation only took us 3 months. And
what business were they in?
They're in the healthcare business. They basically provide a switch between service providers. So service providers, when they would submit a claim for a medical aid claim, those messages would switch between this providing switch and the medical aids on the back end. So they had quite a complicated business because their customers were not just customers. They wanted to know about the customer's customers, and they wanted to understand the relationships between customers and billing entities and usage entities. So there was quite a lot of complexity there that they wanted to unpack themselves, and to some degree, they used the CRM implementation as an opportunity to understand their own business domain.
You're talking about the switching between systems and switching between and needing to have a long chain of information in there. Were you essentially doing data messaging there?
No, we didn't do the messaging. They had their own messaging platform. They had a number of systems in place that they used, one to manage their contact information around their clients, one to manage their ticketing, one to manage report on the usage. So they were looking for a CRM system that was flexible enough to replace 5 existing systems that had been home-built and homegrown. So they were looking for a system to do that. And at the time, they went through all the CRM systems available, and they actually narrowed down 2, and we did a proof of concept based on a simple implementation. And then from there, we led into the data model exercise. It was a great project, and they still use it to this day. They still use Sage CRM.
14-year-old customer now, huh?
Not our oldest customer though, David, but it's an astonishing one to have that takes us back to a very good base for the South African business. Would you say that most of the work that you're doing is essentially CRM led, or is it accountancy led within your practice?
So I think there's a fair bit of both. I can't say you could limit it to one or another. We still have a lot of Sage 300 clients and a lot of clients that run Sage 300 only. In some cases, we'll obviously cross-sell between Sage 300 clients that need some form of CRM. And sometimes it's not even CRM they need. Sometimes they just need a solution to manage an operational challenge that they might have. whether it be a workflow or business, a workflow type challenge where they need to manage a set of processes, where they need to store documentations. Sometimes they need to manage a customer challenge, for example, building a portal, manage membership, some membership challenges, for example.
One of the conversations Jeff and I have a lot, because we're all about getting CRM down to the enormous install base of accounting systems around the world that we have. How would you recommend people with the Sage accounting system consider their journey with CRM? Where would they start?
So you're talking about an end customer. So my feeling in the past has always been to start at the customer service level, to implement it there first. Obviously, sales is generally a good point to start as well. But from experience, we find that unless a customer has a real burning need for a sales management tool and for sales automation, it's actually an easier place to implement and deploy and sell. When I say sell to the business and sell to the users, is on the ticketing side or on the customer service side, because often it's more challenging to manage that, and the types of people that operate in those spaces, understand the need for systems much and transparent systems much more clearly, I think, than sometimes you find on the sales side. I think that makes sense.
Is that in the challenges of sort of things like renewals, service renewals, servicing things like returns material authorization, which would integrate with the accounting system?
That too, but I would even start just with simple ticketing, using the cases function in CRM and giving a customer ticketing tool. So whether it be, managing queries, complaints, or just general communication. Often one of the biggest challenges we find is customers will say, we've got all these emails coming in and they get assigned to people, but there's no visibility of where that email is and what's happened to that information, or who's dealing with the query, or who's dealing with the complaint, or is it closed? So a lot of customers go and they look for things like, they look at typical ticketing systems, but why not have an integrated system where ultimately you can build out your ticketing, your sales automation, your marketing, everything in one?
It's interesting, Jeff, isn't it? Because over the years, a majority of the first steps into CRM from our customers are from a sales perspective. It's organizing sales teams, it's capturing opportunities, it's forecasting. Seems to be different for you, Anthony. Do you think that's an interesting DNA analysis of you as a business, or the area you work in, the region perhaps?
I think it's a combination of things. I suppose it comes to the question is, how would I start someone's journey? A lot of customers come to us and say, look, I need a sales automation tool. And in that case, you would go with what their needs are. But I just think from an adoption point of view, and one of the challenges you often hear in CRM projects that don't go well is adoption is the biggest challenge. It's easier to get adoption right if you start on the operational side than if you start on the sales side. That's just been our experience. It's just easier to get that change in behavior and understanding of the need for a systematic way of doing business.
That is a good reflection, isn't it, Jeff? Because it is about they recognize you have to have, those businesses that need a ticketing system. It's kind of like it's a binary decision, much more than a sales management system is perhaps.
Well, I reacted to the phrase change of behavior. I wonder here if there are some human factors involved in that, whether sales teams tend to be more heroic, and therefore sort of the hero of the salesperson, who is the person who is the star, whereas something like a customer support environment tends to be much more of an operational function. You follow the procedure, and it is less. There's fewer egos involved in a case management system than there is, say, in a sales automation system. That's just my reading of it. Please, if you wish to complain about these things, dear listener, then my email address is david.beard@sage.com.
So can I just maybe just clarify that comment, Jeff? I didn't say that, by the way. I think you have a point to degree. For me, it's more about temperament than about a hero. Operational people tend to be more analytical and more methodical. Salespeople tend to be more relation-orientated than systems-orientated. So they're much more focused on relationships than they are about systems and processes.
That's a lovely way to sweep that into a much tidier pile. Thank you, Anthony. So tell me about some of the industries, because I noticed on your website, which is as.tech.co.za, by the way, just to throw a little advert in there. You talk about this idea of loan management or credit management software. Tell us how that came about and what you've done.
So that actually came about because of CRM as well. There was a customer that was looking specifically, they're in the mortgage space, they're actually a commercial bank, and they needed a system to manage the application process for loans, mortgage loans, and that can be quite a long process. So we implemented Sage CRM for them, and we built the workflow process to do that. That was in about 2008, I think, 2007, 2008. And they've also been a client since then. And that evolved to the point where we actually use Sage CRM to build their entire what they call LCM, what they call a loan management system from beginning to end. And I mean, it worked out quite nicely in the end because they can manage almost entire elements of their business from their marketing side through the operational end, transactional end, right through to collections and into the financials, obviously into Sage 300. And that entire value chain is within one system. And the amount of data that's built up over time is quite interesting. So they record all the information right down to the detail of building configurations, down to detailed valuations over history of time. They produce a 40-page credit proposal out of the system from data captured in the system. Tremendous amount of information that's actually captured in there. And that's obviously a lot of customization has been done over the years.
And so what you've got there is that blend of essential data capture and then process management as well, which is saving time, making sure they do the right thing in the right order, that sort of story.
Exactly, yeah. And that's evolved to a point where we've used we've actually got a number of customers in the credit and loan management space that do similar type of things. So everything from hire purchase to private credit to a combination of development finance. So we've got probably about a dozen clients in that space in areas as far away as, even in North America, we've got some clients there, in fact, in the Caribbean.
In the next episode, Anthony talks about how CRM can not only be quickly installed, but also easily managed and owned by their customers, the unique challenges that operate on the African continent, and more of their stories of Sage CRM in action with their own customers. You've been listening to Talking CRM with Jeff and David. Getting the best for the whole organization from your integrated CRM and accounting systems.